And my name is Amara Wananu, and I'm an Assistant General Counsel and Senior Manager of Program Development at the Association of Corporate Counsel. Welcome back to the Ask Me Anything series, where business and legal leaders answer your pressing questions. We're joined today by a very special guest, Ms. Aparna Bawa, who is the Chief Operating Officer and Interim Chief Legal Officer of a company that's really been a sustaining force during the pandemic, Zoom. Aparna, welcome.
Thank you so much, Amara. So nice to be here.
Right into the questions, if that's okay with you.
Sure.
Okay, great. So our first question is, a year ago today, it was hard to anticipate that Zoom would have changed the culture of work in such profound ways. Aside from the pandemic itself, what's been the most surreal part of Zoom's meteoric rise to popularity?
Absolutely, Amara. We could not have planned it either, and that's definitely the case. For me, what's the most surprising is the number of use cases that have popped up from the use of Zoom across the board, things that we could not have even dreamed of. So around the end of December, we were exiting the calendar year squarely focused on workplace collaboration as our primary driver of business. And if you asked me what I was going to focus on for the following year, it would be that continuing along sort of enterprise and large business uptake and driving that forward. Well, the pandemic hit, and it was a tremendous privilege, and we felt an obligation to keep connectivity for human beings all across the world. And actually, it just so happened that education had been one of our pillars as an employee base that we wanted to focus on in sort of our philanthropic efforts. And so when we saw the pandemic shut down schools, shut down education, it really started with that education vertical. And we started to offer across the globe, as the pandemic rolled through, free services for K through 12 schools in various geographies. When we reached the United States, it took off like wildfire. And so even my own kids' schools, the parents were calling me saying, hey, now I know where you work. And hey, the Zoom thing is awesome. I'm going to connect with my grandma. My kids are going to be able to see grandma. I'm going to do weddings on Zoom. I'm going to do funerals on Zoom. The most surprising thing was I was sitting in my kitchen one morning, and on the Alexa newsfeed, it popped up that, Governor Cuomo had said weddings on Zoom are now legit and legal. And it was just the most surprising thing ever. So I think that is the part of the business that we just did not anticipate. The amount of uptake in different use cases, yoga classes, teaching, dance classes, book readings, funerals, weddings. There's something for everyone on Zoom, and that is probably the most surprising thing for us.
Wow, I didn't know about the kind of educational focus, though, that you started off with, but that's got to be a really exciting time and really great growth story.
Yes, actually, education has always been a significant vertical for us. Our founder, Eric, he started the company with the mindset that, the best, when you're entering a market that has a lot of competition, that people view as sort of already been there, done that, as video conferencing was around 2011. His idea, which I think was a really smart one in hindsight, was let me go see what I can do to make the university experience better. And if I can get the mind share of the knowledge worker right when they're starting to form their opinions and they're starting to look for ways to make their lives more efficient, I can provide a service to them that they will just take with them and that goodwill to their careers. And then he also tapped into the fact that as we put more smart university grads out into the workforce, they also demand more from their employers in order to make their lives more productive and efficient. And so that was the idea. Education has always been a key vertical for us. And actually, as a company, our employees have chosen education as a key philanthropy, focus. So it all kind of worked out really well.
Well, we've kind of just got into our second question, which is, how do you see the video conferencing landscape changing over the next few years? And how does Zoom plan to stay ahead of the competition?
You know, the video conferencing market definitely has a lot of players in it and more interest, especially, you know, when you see in any sort of tech market, anytime there's a company like ourselves that's sort of demonstrating success, you know, you'll have a lot of interest. A lot of folks will want to fund new initiatives or new ventures into that space. You know, we see a lot of small startups trying to leverage Zoom and do, you know, add-ons or put their initiatives into our marketplace, et cetera. And it just spurs this ecosystem, which is
Mhm.
great. We view competition very positively.
Mm,
It forces us to stay focused on innovation, and not just innovation, but also privacy and security, and maintaining the three pillars: innovation, privacy, and security, and staying paranoid about it. We always want to make sure that we are making the best possible service for our customers, and competition helps us stay focused on that. Another thing I would say that we are very focused on at Zoom, and it's part of the culture, is we are very much into customer feedback. We spend a lot of time, even when we're sort of, you know, selling to customers, you know, large customers, small customers, etc. We spend a lot of time talking about what they want to see in the product, what they think will be better, you know, ways in which we can improve, and we actually reserve engineering time to take that input and implement it across the platform so everybody can benefit from it. We're maniacal about this process, and I think that's not going to change, and it does help us from a competitive position for sure.
it's very compelling, you know, as you describe being almost maniacal and paranoid about, you know, how detail oriented you are and how focused you are on sustaining this position. And by all indications, it seems your business model will translate to long-term success. Uh, so we know that you were recently promoted from Chief Legal Officer to Chief Operating Officer, and was wondering for our members if you can kind of describe the story behind that, and for members who are
Sure.
who assume kind of a business role.
Absolutely. So, you know, my history or my career path has been a little bit non-traditional. You know, when I started off my career in law, I was a corporate securities attorney at Wilson Sonsini, loved the firm, had a great time. I was recruited to be an investment banker, and I was very curious. I was an accounting major and a finance minor in college. And so I can do Excel, and I can also do Word. Now it's, I guess, Google Sheets and Google Docs, but I can do both. And I was curious about it, and I loved the aspect of investment banking that, you know, you really became so focused on a particular client, and you would drive their, you know, achieve a successful outcome. You would be their consigliere, if you will, or their sort of their finance driver, you know, solution provider. Um, I think longer term, I started to recognize that investment banking for me was not going to be something that would be as fulfilling, you know, as I got more and more senior, because it sort of it felt more like I was in charge of selling and managing, you know, selling to a quota, and then I would, as you get more senior, you hand off your deal or your transaction to the execution team and you move on. I decided to go in house, and at the time, one of my clients hired me. I'm very grateful for the opportunity that the CEO gave me. His name is Young Sohn. He's now at Samsung. He's amazing. He gave me an opportunity, and he said, come in to help us go public, and also help us, you know, build up any sort of corp dev function we might have. Um, and what I realized is that, you know, when you have a good mind to solve problems, you can kind of marry your legal career, your legal education, and sort of logic with,
Mhm.
you know, looking at a business from end to end, and kind of marry that together and solve problems across the business. So I was able to take that learning from Infi, the company I joined, and go to a company called Nimble Storage, did that again, and continue along that path of taking the frameworks and the logic that the legal education gives you and the legal training gives you, and apply it to a business, you know, in its entirety. What also really helps, Amara, is to have sold in the past, have had to, you know, write an S1 which is focused on a business section that is on the marketing of the business.
Mhm.
You know, taking execs on an IPO roadshow and understanding the pressure that they face and the questions that they face about the business and why certain disclosure is good or not so good for that outcome. And just understanding all of that and putting it in a package, it can really help you be more of a solution provider than just a lawyer who gives you legal advice. And I think that's how I've always operated, even as a general counsel.
Right.
And this was an opportunity. So my CEO and I, sort of when we talked about this promotion to COO, this was an opportunity to extend that security, privacy, HR. We call it people experience, which is a much better term for it, actually. Trust and safety, et cetera. There's a lot of connection. Sometimes it's hard to see where legal stops and another function takes over, and it kind of blends into each other. And it's
Right.
so critical, security and privacy in particular is so critical to how we operate and the trust that our customers place in us, that it's good to see that picture end to end. And so that is really the reason why I was promoted, and that's my mandate, to make sure that anything that our management team wants to do from a strategic vision or mission perspective is then put into place, is implemented, is executed on. That's my job. That's number one. Number two, to act as a change agent such that when we identify things that aren't working, or for example, in the pandemic, our business has grown so much, it has grown so much in 3 months, other companies would experience that growth over multiple years. And so then how do you get that infrastructure to change in a rapid way to match that growth? That's sort of the job of a change agent. And I think as a person, I think I've embraced change in my life in the past, and it doesn't make me nervous. I know it's a constant. And so I'm trying to bring that to bear as we try to scale our infrastructure to match the demand that we see in the market.
Well, thank you for sharing that. It's a part of your story I hadn't heard that before. From the law firm to investment banking and then to the general
Right.
counsel. The last question that we have for you is kind of a fun one. What is the most fun that you've ever had on a Zoom meeting?
I think I have to say, hands down, the most fun I've ever had. We had a team meeting early on in the pandemic, and we'd all gone to work from home. At the time, I think people were sort of mixed. We have a very collegial environment. We do like to go, the employees like to go into the office to see each other. So I think it was a little mixed. People were apprehensive, and we wanted to have some fun. And so it was a good way to stay connected. We decided to do this segment where we pretended it was MTV Cribs. So someone would volunteer. It was all on a volunteer basis. We don't force anybody to do this, but someone would volunteer and walk their laptop with their camera open, through their house, like open the fridge, see what's in the fridge. It was a bit of a joke because I love fashion and I love shoes, and so one of my our privacy one of our privacy team members also loves shoes, so it was a little bit of a shoe bake-off between who had the best collection. And so we did that. We did, for every time we met, we'd do like one session of MTV Cribs. It was great. It was so nice to see. You don't get to see that even if you're in the office. I mean, you can't see your colleagues like home base and where they live. And it's great to put them in context so that when you're on this video, this video conference with the virtual background, you can still imagine and picture where they are and what they're doing and what their life is like. And it just makes you feel a lot more personally connected to someone. I would say the second thing that we've done that I think is fabulous is our sales enablement team, just to boost our own employee morale, does this series called Behind the Virtual Background. And so they make us so they've done this with a couple execs so far, and they're rolling it out to more execs, but they make us take down the virtual background, and you have to be in the spot that you are. And so if I take down my virtual background, you'll see that I'm in a little sliver of a hallway right next to my pantry. And that's my office. It actually is great because it keeps me close to the kitchen, and I can keep an eye, an eye and an ear, kind of, maybe it's better of an ear, out for my kids. And I see everybody because everybody has to, they want to go get snacks. They're going to see they have to go to the pantry. It's actually fabulous. But so the segment that the team is doing is behind the virtual background, and they're asking you how, you're coping yourself in the pandemic, what your family situation is like, some of the same questions you're asking me. What's the most fun you've had? I have to say those little segments are also awesome. It's a way to get to know your colleagues in a very intimate, personal way that, you know, you might not even do in sort of real life in an office, but it helps you feel connected to the people that you're working with. That's for sure.
Well, I think that's kind of a theme of how we've all felt about Zoom helping us to connect through the time of that.
The other thing I would say I love about Zoom is, you know, you stop caring how you look, what's your background like. Of course, for AMA, you know, I want to make it, you know, the virtual background is up, etc. But
Right.
on a day-to-day basis, I've gotten much more comfortable in my skin. You know, I don't have to have my hair done. I don't have to, you know, put the makeup on. I think it makes, for me, I've embraced sort of being my authentic self, which is also kind of fun. I know it's a different, you know, situation for everyone, but, you know, I look at it as an opportunity to do that and really sort of ironically break down barriers that would be in place if you were going into a physical location.
Right. Absolutely. Well, thank you for, you know, opening up for us and for sharing your story and joining us. We know this is a really busy time for you with everyone returning to school and the demands on you in your new role as heading up operations. So we really appreciate your time, and it's been a great conversation, and thank you so much.
Thank you, Amara. Really appreciate it.
Thanks.
Take care.
See you next time.